I had sent 2 presentations, but because the room is largely entrepreneurs. How many of you are doing a startup? How many of you here are doing a startup, including Jumane and me? Almost all of you, right? So I had another presentation that I was supposed to speak about as a keynote, but because most of us here are startups, I thought, and because we are going to have 6 of you, 2 of you are going to be pitching, 4 of you are going to be on stage together, I think I thought this is a better presentation. I speak fast, I know, but I'm sorry for that. If I'll try to speak as slow as I can. If it is still fast, you can catch me after the presentation and we can chat. So my deck is called the rule of 3. And if your pitch deck isn't pitching, then your story is going nowhere. So I'll speak on this one. It's called the rule of 3. All right. So the first 3 seconds of, and I'm happy to share this presentation, okay? This presentation is for everyone to use. You can review it. If anyone wants very specific questions, you can always write to me. I'm sure the team at Sahara can also solve this, but anyone wants to talk to me, I'm more than happy. So let us look at why or how the first 3 seconds are important. The first slide that you have is the cover page, right? At best, if you're going to send it out to someone, maybe they're going to spend like 1 second. If your cover page isn't telling a short story, which is exciting or interesting enough, in that 1 second, if you're unable to attract the attention, maybe your chances are going to be a bit slimmer. Then you got the next 3 seconds for the next 3 slides. So instead of having too much of text on it or putting too much of data on it or being all over the place, your goal should be to try and see that those 3 slides, slide 1, slide 2, and slide 3, anticipating that the viewer is going to spend 3 seconds on it in total, you are able to capture their attention. The single most important thing that the first, second, and third slide are doing, it is not giving away the entire story. It is merely acting as a hook so that the person is going to spend at least the next 30 seconds seeing, this seems interesting. Let me see what is there. So at least you know that if the first 3 slides are acting as a hook, the viewer is going to spend the next 30 seconds at least seeing some more slides. You have some opportunity to tell a story. If the first and second slide are boring, it is too vague, or it is trying to portray a larger than life kind of a thing, people see through it. They're not even going to take a look at the next few slides. And if you're able to get 1, 3, and 30 right, maybe the next 3 minutes are yours. So you have a full 3 minutes to impress the viewer or the reader with whatever you have in your pitch deck. So why is it that your cover slide carries the hook? We always say that you judge a book by its cover. Even when you're looking at new movies, that whether you want to watch at the cinema, you want to watch on Netflix, you're going to see a trailer of the movie that is maybe going to launch 3 months from now, 6 months from now, but they're creating excitement. So in the trailer, more often than not, if it is a 20-second trailer or a 30-second trailer, they have the best scenes from the movie. The stars in all their glory, they're shown, and you're like excited. Wow, this seems to be like a really nice Avengers movie. This seems to be like a really nice James Bond movie. I want to watch it. So they're trying to build a lot of momentum using that trailer, which is mainly maybe 20 to 30 seconds. The movie is 2 hours, but the 30-second trailer, it creates a lot of excitement. Similarly, the cover of a book, it kind of creates excitement. You don't really judge a book by its cover, but having a nice cover or a front page, it creates attention. So let us say that you keep it clean, professional, and succinct, which means that you're like very precise in what you're talking about. So instead of saying, how many of you are doing something in financial services? Anyone building for financial services? In fintech? Insurtech? Anyone? Anyone building for healthcare? Healthcare software, healthcare applications? EdTech? There are a few of you. So let us say that you're doing something with AI in EdTech. So instead of saying that we are disrupting Tanzania's X billion-dollar education industry leveraging AI, it is very broad. You're trying to talk about a sector, you're trying to talk about the technology you're using, but it is very vague. But instead, if you're very precise, so in this case, because I'm talking of banking and how you're using AI, I say that we help micro, small, medium businesses get paid 5 times faster now. It is a very short sentence, but it is very specific. So in this case, let us say you're building something in EdTech and leveraging AI, and let us say you're helping educational institutions, the onboarding process faster. So instead of having a vague statement which says we are disrupting Tanzania's education sector by leveraging AI, if you talk very specific, saying that we help students get onboarded to the universities 5 times faster, or something to that effect. Or if you're helping learners to learn concepts faster, leveraging augmented reality or virtual reality. If you talk about how quickly you are able to help students learn, I think that is more specific, and the viewer or the reader of the deck feels that, these guys seem to be onto something. So you at least have their attention. And then when you get their eyeballs, you need to grab their attention, right? So you have 3 seconds to impress. So after the first slide, which is maybe 1 second, you have 3 more seconds in which you're trying to give more information, which lets the individual to understand that, is this something of interest to me? Let me take a deeper look. So instead of saying something like the education system is broken, we all know that. We all keep saying that. Someone might say the transportation sector is broken. Someone might say financial services sector is broken. But those are very vague statements, and it is not right. But you can be very specific. So in this case, because my deck was talking largely to banking or financial services, instead of saying that the banking system is broken, if I say that 40 million micro, small, and medium enterprises wait on average for 47 days to get paid, losing $4.5 trillion annually. It's a broad statement, but it touches upon 3 very specific things. It talks about the size of the market, which is 40 million. It talks about the delays, which is the number of days that they're waiting, and what does it cost? What does it cost to that sector in that country, right? So you're being specific, you're showing size, and you're making it impossible to ignore. So all of these 3, they are pretty much number related, but they are stitched together in a sentence so that if I am an investor or if I am a bank and you're pitching a fintech idea to me, let us say I'm Absa Bank and you're pitching to me, and I read this, I say, okay, these guys seem to be solving a genuine problem. Instead of your sentence saying that we are solving for banking industry with AI because banking is broken, that is too vague for anyone to believe into. So that is where you bring your solution problem statement fit. We always talk about market fit, problem statement fit. So it is important that you're logical, you're clear, and you're believable. A lot of times as entrepreneurs who are building a tech first or digital first business, we try to kind of talk very big picture. We always talk of big, hairy, audacious goals, right? I mean, as a concept. So we talk of the big picture. But a lot of times when we talk of the big picture, we fail to forget, or we fail to kind of realize that the person who is reading it on the other side probably also knows what the gap is or where the problem is. And they know that if you are trying to punch above your weight, or if you are building a startup for the first time and you're talking too generally, they know that you can't solve it. Or maybe you do not have the wherewithal to solve it. So they don't believe it. So it is important to be believable. So instead of saying that we are building an AI-powered revolutionary platform. So one of the biggest challenges with a lot of tech entrepreneurs is that when we talk of tech, whether it is AI, blockchain, whatever, a lot of times we end up making blanket statements. We say that we are an AI-powered revolutionary platform. What does it mean? If I am a layman, but if I'm a senior banker, I don't know what you're talking about. What does your platform do? Where does AI come in? How does it help? I do nothing. But if it says something very specific, our automated payment system reduces wait time from 47 days to 7 days. And this can apply for multiple industries. Maybe you're building for healthcare. Maybe in the healthcare industry, you're building an AI-based platform which helps the pathological clinics or the labs in quicker analysis of the output from your blood sample or whatever. Maybe instead of taking 48 hours, the samples can be returned in 6 hours. That is much faster. It is saving a lot of time. For the patient who has given the blood sample, if he or she is getting the report in 6 hours instead of 48 hours, it reduces anxiety. So you are using AI in a big way where you're bringing in accuracy, but also from a patient standpoint, you're reducing a lot of stress. As a hospital or as a clinic or as a lab, instead of 48 hours on a report, if I'm able to turn around reports in 6 hours, it means I can do more work. So being very specific, like what you do, here you're reducing time. You're using AI for the banking industry for small, medium enterprises to get paid faster. I'm not saying that you get paid real time. It is a lie. Because not too many things can happen real time. It is not believable. But if you say that as a small business, instead of waiting 47 days to get paid, you can get paid in 7 days by the bank adopting our systems. But from that, which you keep updating on a regular basis, maybe you're making smaller pitch decks depending on whom you're pitching to. If you're going to a customer, maybe you're removing very specific slides. If you're going to an investor, you're taking specific slides. So you're being very, very customized to whom you're taking that pitch deck to, right? And you'll always have a TAM, a SAM, and a SOM. How many of you are familiar with the terminology TAM, SAM, and SOM? What is TAM? T-A-M. What is SAM? What is SOM? Anyone named Sam over here? Samuel, Sam? Anyone? What is TAM, SAM, and SOM? Come on, show some life. You just had food. Yes, brother. Okay, what is SAM? SAM. What is SAM? Serviceable? And SOM? What is SOM? S-O-M. Serviceable? Obtainable market. Good. So having statements like the TAM is $1 trillion global market is very vague. I don't know what you're going after. If you're going to be building a business only for Tanzania, having a TAM as $1 trillion global market makes no sense. But if you tell me that I have 400,000 educational institutions in Tanzania which can adopt my software, or 400 clinics or 400 hospitals in Tanzania which can adopt my software, and the users will pay me $100 per month, it gets me to $4 billion in serviceable, obtainable market. That is believable. I know that you're being very crystal clear what you're going after as a healthcare AI solution or a AI for education solution. The moment you are able to articulate, keeping the TAM and SAM aside, if you say that I'm going to go after a specific number of customers who will pay me X dollars per month, and that gets me to X dollars in the serviceable, obtainable market. That is what an investor wants to hear. A lot of times we keep complaining that money doesn't come in, investment is not happening, because a lot of times we are unable to articulate what is the market we are going after in a believable manner, in a logical manner, rather than having a very vague TAM of $1 trillion or $2 trillion, whatever. It doesn't make sense, right? So only if you don't want someone to whom you have sent a pitch deck, if you don't want them to read further, you can do all these things. You can take a photograph and frame it somewhere so that you know you are not doing these things. Having an unclear problem statement, a lot of text, right? A lot of marketing stuff, which is very gimmicky, and it is kind of, it all seems very fluff, but it's not going to kind of happen. Too many claims that you're making that how big your business can be, or maybe a sequence of a lot of bullet points with no real tangible action points or clarity as to how your business is going to make money. So it's very important that just today, I think I was having a chat with someone, a logistics company. They've been around for a while, and they're using a lot of technology, telematics and all of that. But the owner of the company said one thing. He said, how much ever we try to bring in technology, how much ever advanced we try to be with innovation, if we don't have the right people in place, we are not even going to have the right process in place. Not everyone needs to be a founder or a co-founder, right? You might have your director of engineering or someone who is head of business who probably started out from day zero, but because of X, Y, Z reasons, he or she is not a co-founder, but because they're there from day zero, you have given them some sweat equity, maybe 2% or 4%. But they have skin in the game because they have equity in the company. So it's very important to feature those guys. What is the relevant experience that you as a company has to the problem statement? Whether you come from banking as an industry, whether you have a PhD in AI or you have a master's in AI, so the right kind of relevant experience you have depending on the kind of company. Whether you're building AI in healthcare, AI in education, or you're doing something in fintech, in insurtech, maybe you're doing something in financial inclusion, it could be anything. But the core team should have some relevant experience either in the domain, which is the industry, or if you're building something which is tech first or digital first, You need to have some experience of how do you build and scale that solution, right? So it is very important to have relevant experience. And always remember, if there are two good co-founders, instead of having a slide which is a team slide with 10 people in it who are interns and freelancers and whoever, it is important to just feature those two full-time co-founders. And the academic background they have, the work background they have, instead of having a slide which has 20 part-time advisors, no one has a full-time skin in the game. So no one is interested in a business which almost seems like an afterthought or as a part-time business, if everyone is part-time. So just focus on people who are full-time devoted to the company, which is the co-founders. And if you have one or two advisors who are reputable names, people who kind of bring a lot of trust, people who have the right kind of reach, you can feature one or two of those advisors or mentors saying that this is what is adding credibility to what I'm doing. So imagine you're fresh out of university and you have never built a company before, but you're a smart kid. You know what you're doing. But if you go out there, no one knows you because you're still in school. And at the same time, you do not have the right kind of networks. Maybe you have Jumanne as a mentor or an advisor. Maybe you have Adam or Musa or someone, and they know people. They are on board as an advisor, they're on board as a mentor, but people know them, they know the people. So if you feature one or two of these guys, it is still okay, because it helps in building credibility, trust. At times, if Jumanne is speaking somewhere, he might just reference you as a company on stage. It's good for you, right, from a visibility standpoint. But do not have a slide which has the name of your professor, maybe the name of someone who is a friend, just blasting 10 names on the slide, it takes you nowhere. So numbers are always important. And at early stage of growth, even if the numbers seem small, it is important, right? So a lot of times, if you measure your company from day 1 to maybe day 180, which is 6 months from you started, if you're measuring week on week, if you're measuring month on month, if you're measuring quarter on quarter, you will see growth. Maybe it is 100% growth, at times it is 400% growth, maybe in terms of revenue, you have quadrupled, you have gone 10x, whatever it is. But it is very important to show that during the time that you've been around as a company, whether it is a few months, a few quarters, or maybe a year, how has the business grown week on week or month on month, depending on the kind of company. If you're in a mass market, let us say healthcare, education, financial services, maybe every week you are doubling the number of users after a certain point. So it is important to measure at what rate your business is growing. And also you will hit a point where there is a sudden spike in the growth, right? So it is very important to measure all of that. So what is your traction? Traction in terms of revenue, traction in terms of number of customers, traction in terms of number of partnerships, traction in terms of number of cities from where you have customers. Maybe you started in Dar es Salaam, but very soon, in 6 months, you're having customers, even smaller numbers, but from 10 cities in the country. It is good to talk about it. What is the unit economics? A lot of times, we fail to kind of measure what is the cost of acquiring a customer. So whether you're in B2C or B2B, there is always a cost of acquiring that customer, right? You need to be aware what does it cost you to acquire that customer. And over a period of time, the more customers you acquire, the cost of acquisition, it keeps going lower. So what is the unit economics your business has? What is the monthly growth rate you have? You can measure on quarter, on annual. And similarly, if you're having traction, do not just hypothetically show that next 5 years my business is going to take off from Earth to Mars or Earth to Moon. It is not happening. It is very important that you're kind of staying closer to ground, you're staying very real, and you're not making big assumptions or hypothetical kind of predictions. Just when you measure a week-on-week growth or month-on-month growth, instead of going to a 5-year projections, if you're just able to show how your business has performed over the past 52 weeks, or over the past 12 months, 6 months, whatever, people will believe that story. You don't need to talk about where it can be 5 years from now. No one has seen 5 years from now. But if you're able to show real numbers, proof that how your business has grown, people will buy that story. And it is your power to convince them as an entrepreneur. So how do you ask for money? You always run a risk of asking for less. You also run a risk of asking for more. In either cases, it's a problem. If you ask for more, someone is going to say no. If you ask for less and you get a bad deal, then you're going to sit home and wonder, like, I should have asked for more money because maybe I made a bad deal. So it's a tricky question. So instead of saying very randomly or very blanket that we are raising for 18-month runway or 12-month runway, It's very important why and what you're asking for. So if you're very clear, even in your mind, to know that I'm raising 100K or 500K to reach X dollars in revenue over the next 9 months, the person whom you're pitching to, they will exactly understand why you're trying to raise money or what are you going to do with it. You can then further break it down. I'm going to hire tech talent, I'm going to spend this on marketing or whatever it is. But the moment you're very clear, we are raising X to achieve Y in Z time frame. It gives total clarity to someone who is reviewing your pitch deck. They know that you know why you're raising and for what you're raising. If you just, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, it's not difficult to raise money. Believe me, it is tough, but most of the times we fail to raise money because we are not sure of certain things, right? A lot of times you ask for money, and even if the person has the money to give, if they ask you what are you going to spend on, and you don't have an answer or you just give some rubbish answer, they know that this guy is probably going to blow away the money. But if you are very clear that with this money, I'll get to X amount in revenue in X amount, Y amount of time, they know that you're confident and you're at least believable. This number can go up and down. Instead of 100K, you might just hit 60K. Instead of 9 months, it might become 14 months. That's okay. But at least they know what you're trying to raise for. You're going after revenues as a business. It is not that you're raising just to build a team. So here are certain things that you can focus on. It is very important that you keep it simple. Do not use ambiguous terms, big words. It's going to take you nowhere. So be very simple rather than bringing complexity. It is important to be creative, but not just in your pitch deck. It is important to be more clear. So the moment you try to get a lot of creativity in your pitch deck, trying to sell a story, people are going to see through it. And it's going to make it even more difficult to raise the money. Evidence is bigger than promises. So instead of saying where your business can hypothetically be 5 years from now, like I said, none of us knows where we are going to be 5 years from now. But if you tell me that in the last 6 months, this is how my business has performed, week on week, I'm able to onboard X customers, month on month, my revenue has doubled or tripled or whatever, that's a believable story. It is giving projections, it is giving me kind of real insights like how and what your business is performing. And the last one, it's always important to show data which is numbers. Instead of just using adjectives and grammar and English like I'm speaking, it's okay. I mean, we all speak English now. So it is okay. But if you have numbers on your slide, that is half the work which is done. So thank you, and happy to take a couple of questions if anyone has. But if not, thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause for a wonderful and in-depth presentation. Let's still have you up here, and I think Jumaine as well.
My name is David, and I'm very happy to learn from the pitch deck presentation. I just wanted to ask about, for example, I'm a pre-seed. I just want to raise money for at the very beginning of my business. But I don't have a story to tell for something that I've done maybe over the past 6 months or 2 weeks of my business. How do I make maybe my story to be so much a little bit interesting or convincing to an investor to invest into my business? Thanks.
That's okay. All right. No, thank you, my friend, for your question. How many of you are currently running a business which is less than 3 months old or less than 6 months old? How many of your businesses are less than 6 months old? Yeah. How many of you are pre-revenue? Pre-revenue business. There's nothing to be ashamed. You can raise your hand as tall as you can. Just you. Okay, I'll answer this question. So others should not listen. It is just for you. Okay. So look, I mean, as young businesses, whether you're tech or non-tech, a lot of us want to kind of raise money. But there is no one single window that you need to look at to raise money. Okay? And also at an early stage of business, there are different avenues which are available. Maybe you have your family and friends, if they can lend you money, if they trust you, they can give you some money. But other than that, I think it is very difficult to go to institutions like banks to take a loan. VCs, they're also always going to look at proof in terms of how big your business is, what you're doing. So in that stage, if you want to support your business, there are a couple of ways. One is going after a lot of competitions, pitch days, and all of that, where there is some prize money. Prize money can always kind of help pay the initial bills. Maybe it is for development, maybe it is for having your website, whatever. But go after pitch contests where there is some money available. The other one is grant making opportunities, depending on what kind of business you are in. Unless and until you put yourself out there, you don't know whether your business really merits any kind of capital. Are there people willing to back those kind of projects? But to expect that at a pre-revenue stage, you're going to have, and particularly in these markets, I'm not talking just of Tanzania, but typically in emerging markets, it is very difficult to get someone to just write you a check. I mean, we all kind of listen to stories in Silicon Valley. That's a different world. So there's no need to compare, right? So in home markets where you are, you need to kind of find ways in which you can support your ambition, your vision. One of the things that I also tell a lot of young people who are building for the first time, there is no pressure to be an entrepreneur, right? You do not have to just, everyone does not have to be an entrepreneur. Because ask him, if this guy is doing this for 10 years or more, he knows the pains that he has. Maybe the world sees Jumane very differently, but his bank balance, he knows. His home, he knows. That you don't need to know. It is always important at times to think that let me first go and work for 1 or 2 years. So you also need to not just think about yourself. You need to think about the home and circumstances you come from, right? By taking the plunge towards entrepreneurship, a lot of times you might be putting pressure on yourself and also your immediate family, right? So there is no harm in working for 1 or 2 years. It does two things. One, it helps you learn a few things by working for someone. Whether you like it or don't like it, that's okay. It's fine. It at least gives you money to survive the month. It pays you the bills, it pays you the salary. The second thing, you get to learn a few things. If not what to do, you at least learn what not to do. And then after 1 or 2 years, you can think, is entrepreneurship something I want to go after? Right? You will at least not put pressure on yourself. There are a lot of young people who want to turn entrepreneur because it seems to be cool and sexy and rosy from outside. It is not. Right? But getting seed money is not easy. It is not just taken for granted that you get some money just like that. So it is a hustle. So even for that, you need to know where to sniff, where to go. If you're banging the wrong doors, maybe there's no money there. But you need to be resourceful to try and understand where to look for. Yeah? Long answer. I talk a lot.
Great. Yeah, so first of all, let's clap for Ajay. And believe me, the session he has just gave is not for pitching in Dar es Salaam. So Ajay does work in Europe, does work in US, does work in Asia, and it does a lot of work in Africa. Your current office now in East Africa is in Uganda, the primary office. So there's a lot of work that is doing with startups, and the knowledge that you got here is literally priceless. So Ajay, just one question from me. You were there in the last Sahara Sparks, and you're here right now. What is your reflection in the past 2 years? And then we'll move to the next session. And not about the event, the ecosystem, the founders you're engaging with, the partnership you're having with corporates. Where do you see our ecosystem? We're reflecting on the past 10 years. Now where do you see Tanzania in the next 10 years?
So I've lived in Tanzania, okay? So last 2 years is okay, but I've lived in this country for 4 years, going back to 2004. I don't know if there are people who are even born after 2004 in this room. So I met someone yesterday, and it was a conversation that guy told me that he went to school with someone whose daughter, he went to school with someone's daughter who was working with me. So I told him that you're making me sound old. I just have some white hair, but that's fine. But that guy was young. Okay, so I left Tanzania in 2008. It was a very different country back then. So my reflection is not just of 2 years of Sahara Sparks, but in general of the country, the market that you're building in. I think this country is a peace-loving country, number one. Okay, it's a very nice country. Dar es Salaam as a city is a beautiful city. A lot of times you talk about places where you can build. This is one of those places where I believe you can actually build. But you also need to kind of have a broader vision, okay? Now, from my personal viewpoint, and the reason why, at least in the last 5 years, I've been to 4 Sahara Sparks, except for 1 year in between. Last year I was not here, but I've been to Sahara Sparks in the last 5 years to 4 of them. It is very good to see a lot many more people who are taking interest in entrepreneurship and building. It is not easy. It is by no way is it easy, but the kind of, or the quality of startups that we have been seeing we do run quite a few programs, right? I mean, we are partners to Sahara for a while, and we ran one program together as well. But working with banks, working with other development partners, we constantly get applications from startups in the region and from Tanzania. I think the quality of entrepreneurship has just about shifted. You see better companies being built. There is always going to be a challenge, but if you look at it from an ecosystem standpoint, a lot of corporates today are taking interest. It will take time for them to start working much closely with startups, whether it's a bank like a CRDB, NMB, Stanbic, APSA, all of these guys. But outside of that as well, other sectors and other industries, the corporates are taking interest. So if you look at a broader or a holistic ecosystem standpoint, you have enablers like yourself, but you now also have corporates kind of coming in, wanting to do their thing with startups. What it is, maybe a lot of them, they don't know. But the most important thing is entrepreneurs continuing to build. I think one of the central themes that you spoke about yesterday as well was the builders, right? It is very important for people to build. A lot of times you're going to hit brick walls, but builders kind of try to kind of bang through those big brick walls, and you maybe will build a better company, tomorrow you'll do something else, but it is important to continue building. And that is something that we see here. I mean, there's no need to compare with Nairobi or with Lagos or Cairo. Those are different markets, and you don't need to think about those. But in the region, if you look at it, I think people here are building good things. Also, the ecosystem in its own way, it is kind of shaping up in a manner which probably will kind of propel you, the economy, in a different way through entrepreneurship. And I think the work that you guys do, I think that has a big role to play. So keep coming to Sahara Sparks. I think it's a good avenue.
Great. Can we give a good round of applause to Ajay? Thank you so much, Ajay.